This is the college football preview from the Sports Talk Media Network. Phil Kornbluth along with Chris Bergen. All right, Bergy, no games this week. One more week to go after this weekend. We'll be off and running with the season. Got some really good matchups coming up in what they're calling week 0. Let's begin with that big one in Death Valley. LSU and Clemson, both teams with national championship aspirations. You buying or selling the Clemson Tigers?
Well, Phil, it's hard to not buy into what the Tigers have, especially if you believe the Associated Press and what they have done in terms of releasing their preseason All-America status earlier this week. I mean, Clemson led all the nation in terms of the amount of players they got on either the first or second team. You had Cade Klubnik and Peter Woods. I mean, no doubters on the first team. And then the second team had Blake Miller, Antonio Williams, and TJ Parker. That's better than everybody else in the country. So just from a talent perspective, you got to kind of buy the Tigers. The question marks, and we won't know until next Saturday because of the matchup with LSU. I think it will expose any weaknesses that Clemson has. First off, the running game. How good is Adam Randall going to be assimilating from wide receiver to running back? And also in the secondary, how is Clemson going to handle things? Maybe with Peter Woods and TJ Parker up front, it won't matter how good the secondary is because they can get after the quarterback. But, Garrett Nussmeier and LSU will certainly challenge that Clemson secondary, and also got to make sure that Clemson can get to the game next week healthy along the offensive line.
Yeah, South Carolina, of course, being talked about heavily as well as a playoff contender, maybe an SEC contender. Not as many All-Americans as Clemson, but still they have some standout individuals. You buying or selling the Gamecocks as they get ready to play Virginia Tech in Atlanta?
I'm buying the Gamecocks as having a really good season. I don't know if I'm quite ready to buy them as an elite team, but when you've got a quarterback, you've got a chance. And much like Clemson, they certainly have a quarterback, and the guy is dynamic. Lenore Sellers proved that the tail end of last season. Can the Gamecocks carry the momentum, bowl game notwithstanding, into this season? And I think they need to, Phil. I think they've got to play well early, and Virginia Tech is not going to be a pushover next Sunday in Atlanta. But looking at their schedule, they've got to find a way to get to either 4-1 or 5-0 through the early portion of their schedule just to have a chance if they want to get into the college football playoff. And their concern right now is on defense. Really hard to replace 5 guys who are drafted into the NFL as starters. And then you've also gotten some guys dinged up along the defensive line where they were already going to be a little thin. And now losing George Wilson, who they were counting on. Shane Beamer saying this week that he may be done for certainly a good portion of this season, if not the entire season. So how do they replace those guys on defense, I think, is the biggest question mark for USC.
All right, let's look at Coastal Carolina. Chanticleer is going to open the season at Virginia. Who will be the quarterback? One of the main contenders went down for the season in practice. Where are they headed there?
I think Tim Beck would like to have Dabo Swinney and Shane Beamer's problem at quarterback. They don't have a question mark. Certainly CCU does. They had 5 guys coming into camp sort of contending for that, including Tad Hudson, who's the only returnee off of last year's team. Tad played the bowl game, but now you lose Emmett Brown, one of the contenders to be the starting quarterback. He went down with an injury earlier in camp, and Coach Beck announcing last week it was a lower leg injury, or at least a leg injury of some sort, and he's going to be done for the year. So I think it's down to 2 of the transfers really have a legitimate shot to take over, either Samari Collier and or MJ Morris. And probably when the depth chart comes out the early portion of the next week, you'll probably have an or along that quarterback deal. This competition may run all the way up to next Thursday or Friday leading into the Virginia game.
All right, a couple of other games that I want to keep an eye on when the season rolls around involving state teams. Got to like this North Dakota State at the Citadel game, top team in FCS coming to Charleston. Also, Wofford going to South Carolina State. Very good season opening matchup. Couple of in-state teams. Wofford looking to break through and have a big year, and State looking to repeat in the MEAC.
You were at Wofford earlier this week for the Palmetto Pigskin Tour, and Sean Watson, their head coach, believes they may have started to turn the corner tail end of last year. I think they'll find out early if they have when they take on the Bulldogs, and clearly the Citadel. I don't think there's a team in FCS that's got a more difficult opening game, even some of the ones that might take on an FBS program, than what the Citadel has. And smartly, I think, on Maurice Drayton and the Citadel's part, let's play that game at high noon in Charleston and hope for some heat.
Yeah, and humidity. All right, other games around the state. Week 1 or week 0 coming up next weekend. Anderson will be at Shorter. It's William and Mary at Furman. Fayetteville State at Benedict. Allen at Morehead State. Presbyterian plays at Mercer. And Charleston Southern will play at Vanderbilt. Newberry has the weekend off. That'll do it for the college football preview. For Chris Bergen, this is Phil Kornbluth on the Sports Talk Media Network.